Okay, I'm back for the second part of the reading. I think the last part that we'll do for today. Just an interesting book again by Sir Charles Bell. It's called The Hand. It's on the Hand. If you want to find it, go to Google Books. I'll put a link in the in the video here. Um, so let's start with this. We'll start with the last paragraph. Some philosophers who have considered the matter curiously have said that if man were translated bodily to another planet, and that planet were smaller than Earth, he would be too light, and he would walk like one wading in deep water. That on the contrary, if the planet were larger, the attraction of his body would make him feel as if his limbs were loaded with lead, nay, that the attraction might be so great as to destroy the fabric of his body, crushing bones and all. However idle these fancies may be, there is no doubt that the animal frame is formed with a due relation to the earth we inhabit, that the strength of the materials of the animal body have as certainly a correspondence with the weight as the wheels and levers of a machine, or the scaffolding which sustains them, have relation to the force and velocity of the machinery, or the load they are employed to raise. So right now he's granting to some philosophers that you could make a comparison between the body and and a machine, but he of course rejects that, I guess. So, but I just think it was interesting about how, he's calling attention to the relation between the body and the earth, and it gets more interesting. Okay, this is page 3. The mechanism and organization of animals have been often brought forward for a different purpose from that for which I use them. We find it said that it is incomprehensible how an all-powerful being should manifest his will by these means, that mechanical contrivance implies difficulties overcome, and how strange it is, they add, that the perceptions of the mind, which might have been produced by some direct means, or have arisen spontaneously, should be received through an instrument so fine and complex as the eye, and which requires the creation of the element of light to enter the organ and to cause vision. For my part, I think it most natural to contemplate the subject quite differently. We perhaps presume too much when we say that light has been created for the purpose of vision. We are hardly entitled to pass over its properties as a chemical agent, its influence on the gases, and, in all probability, on the atmosphere, its importance to the vegetation, to the formation of the aromatic and volatile principles, to the fructification, its influence on the animal surface by invigorating the circulation and imparting health. In relation to our present subject, it seems more rational to consider light second only to attraction for its importance in nature and as a link connecting systems of infinite remoteness. To have a conception of this, we must tutor our minds and acquire some measure of the velocity of light and of the space which it fills. It is not sufficient to say that it moves 200,000 miles in a second, for we can comprehend no such degree of velocity. If we are further informed that the Earth is distant from the Sun, uh, from the Sun 95 million of miles, and that light traverses the space in 8 minutes and 1 1/8, it is but another way of affirming the inconceivable rapidity of its transmission. Astronomers, whose powers of mind afford us the very highest estimate of human faculties, whose accuracy of calculation is hourly visible, have affirmed that light emanates from celestial bodies at such vast distance that thousands of years shall elapse during its progress to our earth, yet that, impelled by a force equal to its transmission through that space, it enters the eye and strikes upon the delicate nerve with no other effect than to produce vision. Instead of supposing light created for the eye, and to give us the sense of vision, would it not be a more just manner of considering the subject to dwell with admiration on the fact that this small organ, the eye, should be formed with relation to a system of such vast extent and grandeur, and more especially that the ideas arising in the mind through the influence of that light and this organ should be constituted a part of one vast whole. So he's trying to get away from some anthropomorphic ideas about what light, about what the being of light is. By such considerations, we are led to contemplate the human body in its different relations. The magnitude of the earth determines the strength of our bones and the power of our muscles. So must the depth of the atmosphere determine the condition of our fluids and the resistance of our blood vessels. The common act of breathing, the transpiration from the surfaces, must bear relation to the weight, moisture, and temperature of the medium which surrounds us. A moment's reflection on these facts proves that our body is formed with a just correspondence to all of these external influences, and not the frame of uh, the body only, but also the vital endowments and the properties of the organ of sense. It were a perverseness to say that the outward senses, the organization, and the vital properties could arise from the influence of the surrounding elements, or out of matter spontaneously. They are created in accordance with the conditions of the globe, and are systematic parts of a great whole. These views lead to another consideration, that it is to external nature, and not of necessity to the mind, that the complexity of our structure belongs. Whilst man is an agent in a material world, and sensible to the influence of things external, complexity of structure is a necessary part of his constitution. But we do not perceive a relation between this complexity and the mind. For aught that we learn by this mode of study, the mind may be as distinct from the bodily organs as the exterior influences are which give them exercise. Something, then, we observe to be common to our planet and to others, to our system and to other systems: matter, attraction, light, which nearly implies that the mechanical and chemical laws must be the same throughout. It is perhaps too much with an anonymous author to affirm that an inhabitant of our world would find himself at home in any other, that he would be like a traveler, for a moment only perplexed by diversity of climate and strangeness of manners, but ready to confess at last that nature was everywhere and essentially the same. However this may be, all I contend for is the necessity of certain relations being established between the planet and the bodily frames of all which inhabit it, between the great mass and the physical properties of every part, that the mechanical construction of animals, as in their endowments of life, they are created in relation to the whole, planned together and fashioned by one mind. A comparison made between the system of an animal body and the condition of the earth's surface is highly illustrative of design in both. In the animal, we see matter withdrawn from the influences which arrange things dead and inorganic. But this matter, thus appropriated to the animal and newly endowed through the influence of life, continues to possess such qualities of inanimate matter as are necessary to constitute the living being, uh, a part of the system, an inhabitant of the earth. To what, then, does this argument lead? Is it not that as the beautiful structure of the animal and the perfection in the arrangement of its parts demonstrate design, so design extends to the condition of the earth also, and over both there is a ruling intelligence? And I'm not sure where he goes from here, but I thought it was interesting for just the approach that Sir Charles Bell just makes in the first 6 pages of his book. I don't know about what he says from here on out, and I'm not sure what he's going to say about design. He might end up saying, no, it's not design traditionally the way we want to think of it. Certainly, some of his thoughts are pretty non or unorthodox compared to what you would usually see. I just think it's great how he sees the body as something that the whole globe is doing, and it's got this, it didn't arise just spontaneously, but that each of the parts is formed only in relation to how to the whole. So the whole is able to constrain the parts instead of just billiard balls and being knocked around. All right, thanks.